Peter Eliades with you. Stock market cycles update for Wednesday, October 9th. October 9th is 10988. My wife and I got married 31 years ago today. Happy anniversary, Marie. Anyway, welcome to October volatility. As we're speaking to you, the futures are down 22 points in overnight trading in Globex. But we're going to look at the action today, and by the end of this update, we'll take a quick look at the Globex chart, see if we see anything of import there. This is an hourly chart, 65 minutes. I call them my hourly charts because they fit into the day, 6 periods exactly in terms of 390-minute cash periods for the whole day. And this is what we saw today. We got an upside projection. Gee whiz, hit it virtually exactly. Here's the high of the day in the last bar, almost exactly at the midpoint of the projections. Let's look at the longer offset, and there are 2 or 3 interesting things happening here. Okay, this is the next longer offset. Notice the upside was hit, the downside was hit, and now look where we are. Does this look familiar? Rally into and give a preliminary projection up to around the 2952 level, but that projection has not been confirmed. And with the futures down 22 points now, in terms of if they open there tomorrow morning, they'd be down in this area somewhere. So we may see the same thing that we saw the other day, with a very close to confirming an upside projection, but not quite getting there. We don't know yet, and we will not know until the first hour or two tomorrow morning. But if they can come back overnight from their 22, 21 points down that they are right now, if they can come back, then this would provide an upside projection into the area of 2952 and change. Okay, let's look at the next longer projection. I think it's the next. Maybe this, let me see. Okay, yeah, this one's important because this is the nominal 5-week upside projection, okay, on the hourly chart. This is the hourly equivalent of the 5-week offset nominal 10-week projection. And it's still calling for 3034 to 3049 and change. But look where we are, and this is all important. There's no more room. Here's the initial offset. Here's the second offset. We've already got an initial projection down to the area of around 2887. That would take us just a little bit below where we were at the beginning, in between yesterday and today, but it would not yet take us down to the low that we saw in the opening of October 3rd. So we're still in this area where we're doing a lot of work between the 2850 and, let's say, the 2960 area. All this work has been done over the past several market days. But if we see this come down tomorrow, if indeed there is follow-through action in the morning, the first couple of hours below the blue line, then this upside projection will have been invalidated. Now, that does not mean it's the end of the world, and it does not mean we have any significant downside projections to look at. In fact, as you can see, if in fact that happens, yes, this upside will be invalidated, but the downside is simply taking us back in the range somewhere probably between this level and the low that we saw at, I think it was 2955. This low, yes, 2955.94 that we saw at the opening on October 3rd. So that's where we stand in terms of the 5-week offset and the nominal 10-week projection. Now, probably the best picture that we can get will be from the weekly offsets. So let's take a look at the weeklies and show you that we can still piddle around here and not invalidate all the upside projections. So on the weekly projection chart, let's take a look here. Okay. This is the bar for this week. This is the 5-week offset. This is the nominal 10-week projection. We did a calculation. It's pretty easy to do. We want to know what the exact red line is this week? What is this offset line? And what do we have to get to in order to avoid invalidating this upside projection? Without going through the process of going with the up and down numbers, I'm going to tell you what numbers are required to get an invalidation of those upside projections for the Dow and for the S&P 500. So in order to stay above this offset this week, the S&P has to get up as high as 2985.05. That's the exact number. And as you can see, it closed at 2919.40 today. So we're talking about 60 to 70 points are required to the upside over the next 2 days in order to make this high enough to keep us from having gone below the number here. Now this, I'm talking about the S&P and I'm showing you the Dow. The Dow number required this week has to get up to 26,699.29 to be exact, 26,699.29, and we're now at 26,346. So we're talking about a 320 or 30 point rally that's required on the Dow in order to avoid invalidating this upside projection and in the meantime giving a downside projection. It's pretty easy to see the approximate level that will get the downside projection to, but it's not a huge downside projection. It's probably back in the area of the lows that we saw in August. Right now, that's 25,340, let's say, in the Dow. It's probably in this area here somewhere. You simply measure from the high down to the crossing point and coming down into this area right here. So no big deal to the downside. That will simply mean an invalidation of the upsides. Let me give you those numbers once again. What's required for the Dow is 26, let's say 700, rounded off to the next point. You've got to get to a high of 26,700 on the Dow this week, and on the S&P, a high of 2985 or 86, let's say. If those numbers are reached, this upside will not be invalidated. If they're not reached, the upside will be invalidated and we will get lower downside projections. Now, at this point, the more important chart to look at is the 20-week offset. So the 20-week offset, let's go to the S&P on this one. SPX.X. Okay, the 20-week offset on the S&P. Nope, that's the 10-week. Oh, well, we're here. Let's look at the 10-week because remember what we showed you on the 10-week here. We still have this projection. Now, this is on the S&P. I'm thinking about the New York Composite. So this is not the one we wanted to look at. This is the one we want to look at. This is the 10-week offset for a nominal 20-week projection. So let's look at this. And this one, there's no question about it. This is the December low of 2018. This is where the crossing took place. And this is where the projection. This projection, by the way, is simply, I'll show you what it is. This is the actual projection, this line in the middle. The upper and lower boundaries are simply plus or minus 10%. That's the way we originally did the Hearst projections before we started with the dailies and the double offset lines and whatever. So this projection would call for somewhere around 3,200 plus or minus 10%. So that would be 31,1260 to 3282 for the S&P cash. Now, look at this. That has never been invalidated. You came close in this week ending our August 30th, never did it. And now we have a buffer zone over the next couple of weeks. We can come all the way down into this level. We can get those downside projections on the S&P and have them invalidate their nominal 10-week projection. But this nominal 40-week projection will not be invalidated unless this line is now broken. And notice how over the past few weeks, the red line has come down. We were talking back a week or two ago about this area up here and breaking below 28, let's say 50 or so. But now we're coming down, the offset lines are coming down into a little valley. And the midpoint of the week for next week, for example, would have to be below around 2,800. And the week after that, the same thing, around 2,800. So there is some leeway to the downside without invalidating this significantly higher projection on the S&P. That's where we stand in the longer-term picture. Let's take a quick look while you have us here at the Globex overnight prices and the potential Globex projections. This is what's happening in Globex. Now, this gets interesting because, again, look at these projections. Now, these are wide projection windows. You say, oh, that's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. We came up almost into the midpoint of the projection range. We got a downside projection. That projection, again, is a big box. But notice the lower side of this box. Let me bring that up a little bit so we can see it better. The lower side of this box is 28.5527. Guess what this low is over here? 28.55. So it's telling us that within this whole period here, the downside projection is as low as 28.55, which simply takes you back to the October 3rd low. That's for this particular offset. So if the weakness continues into tomorrow morning and follows through, then that's the potential that you're looking at. This next Globex chart, isn't this interesting? Different offset. Let's look at the lower projection here. 28.5550. Again, remember, this low right here is 28.55 over here in October 3rd. So what this is telling us is, yes, we may get follow through to the downside, but it appears, at least now, that this is the downside potential. There are, at least through the action that we're looking at now, are no further downside projections possible. Just out of curiosity, let's take a look at the next longer. So there are no downsides. There are no projection lines or offset lines underneath us to give us lower projections there. And I think the same is true in a follow-through. So that's where we stand. I hope the picture is clarified a little for you. It's clarified for us. I know this has been a long update again, but this is October, and October gets a little bit volatile. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you haven't done so. We're not averse to doing intraday updates if we see something important happening intraday in the market. So if you subscribe, bottom right of your screen, the little red banner, and then click on the little bell, the notification bell after you subscribe, you will be notified immediately when any new projection goes online, the daily ones or any intraday ones. Thanks for watching.